How does integrity impact our success in manifesting? That's exactly what we're talking about today. But before we do that, if you're done with pushing and forcing yourself to get things done without results, come find your Manifest Without Force or Frustration gift at highertrueself.com. It's completely free. Now, on to the show. Episode 39. Does integrity impact your manifesting success? And I know we think of integrity as in keeping our word to others, that we're reliable, that people can count on us, we don't lie, we follow through on what we say we're going to do. And it's kind of like we think integrity is how we're turning up to others and how people regard us in the world. And while that's a big part of integrity, because that's the glue in relationships, whether it's a working relationship or an intimate relationship or you're a parent with a child, they can trust what you say. They can take it to the bank, so to speak. I think that's the highest form of integrity. But what we're talking about today is manifesting and integrity. How does that impact your success, your abilities to be effective at manifesting? It's everything. It's everything. So I'll tell a personal story. Way back when, I had a beautiful home. It was about a mile from the beach in Carlsbad, California. And one day I noticed my cat sleeping in a particular place in the kitchen. And I was like, that's so weird. It's a tile floor. Why is the cat sleeping there? And she did it for a few days. So I went over, curious as I am, and I felt the floor and it was warm. I said, why is the floor warm there? So I called to find out, was there something wrong? And then discovered there was a water leak. And it had flooded the ground. Because there was no basement in California, it had soaked the concrete. Well, long story short, the people who came to dry it out, which was sent by my insurance company, didn't dry it out fully, and mold grew inside the walls. Terrible. I remember speaking to people way back in 2004 that mold was going to be the next big thing, like cigarettes and what cigarettes did to people's health, and everything would change. But way back then, no, it wasn't known. So let's fast forward. I tried to live in the house and started to get really sick. So my son and I moved out. We were living in hotels and then eventually in an apartment, but I still owned the house. Well, when you get exposed to something like that, so toxic, your body can react. And I started to put weight on. And weight can be a sign of a high acid condition. That's a whole other conversation, because that was my first venture into entrepreneurial work. Is I ran a business teaching people about natural health and did lots of seminars at massage schools and resorts. And I loved it, learned a lot. So I knew that putting on weight in such a rapid time frame, that there was something wrong. There was something going on with my body. So I started to search for solutions. This podcast isn't about those solutions. Maybe I'll do one in the future. But what it was is that because I was normally pretty slim and my weight didn't fluctuate very much, it was really hard for me to handle that. I'd look in the mirror and it just impacted my confidence. And I remember my webmaster at the time, I had a great picture of me speaking in a resort in front of a large audience. And I said, but Rob, I don't look very good. Look at my belly and my face is all puffy and my arms. He said, leave it to me. So he did a Photoshop on it and slimmed me down. We used that image. I don't really like that now. I won't do that now. But what it did, and why we're talking about integrity here in this podcast, is it enabled me to continue kind of lying to myself that something seriously was going wrong with my health. And it was that moment when I said, here I'm doing this workaround and I'm going to do a Photoshop on my body. Wait a minute, stop, pause, take this seriously. So with integrity is we're being honest with ourselves, and that we are looking at the things and the case as it is, not as it was, not as we want it to be. And you're probably starting to say, well, wait a minute, doesn't manifesting focus on what you want and not physical reality? Yes and no. But there's an important stage where I think many people miss, and that stage is telling the truth. So admitting where we are right now is the only way to be able to manifest something different and to create a different outcome. So we have to tell ourselves the truth, which is whatever it is you're dealing with, tell yourself the truth. You're not connected with your partner. I'm not saying it needs to be ended, but you're not connected with your partner. You're not communicating. You're feeling isolated, or that your health, it's been creeping up, and yeah, you're over 40 and they say, oh yeah, putting weight on is normal and natural. Yeah, right. I mean, I heard that too. Or that you've got some aches and pains. It's hard to walk up the stairs and your knees are aching. Tell the truth. Don't be like a frog, just slowly getting cooked in the water until, oh my gosh, you need a knee replacement, or oh my gosh, my partner's asking for a divorce. When we tell the truth, we're in integrity with ourselves, with our, I would say, our true self. We're in integrity. We're listening. How to get there is a wonderful journey, but a lot of people, I will tell you, don't do it, because we are trained in the world to just go along to get along. Oh, you're feeling uncomfortable? Suck it up. Stiff upper lip. Just tolerate it. Nobody likes their job. No relationship's perfect. I'll tell you a brief story, and then we're going to get back to the podcast. It was one of my longstanding clients, wonderful man. He'd been studying this work for several years, and he was in the highest potential program. I think it was his second time through, because we evolve, we elevate, and we start reaching for bigger and bigger things. And he said, you know what? I've got a great marriage. And he would tell me about it. He had met this person, his wife, many years ago, and he just knew that was the partner for him. And he wooed her, and they got married, and they had children, and they have an incredible relationship. And I remember him telling me, he said, when I rated on a 1 to 10 scale, that's another way of telling the truth, rating something, 10 being very fulfilling and desirable, 1 not at all. He said, I'd rated a 10. I said, whew, that's fabulous. A marriage of, I don't know, was it 20 years at that time? He said, I'm going to set an objective. I'm going to set a super achiever objective, and that's something we teach in the highest potential program, is that you can achieve something that perceptually feels so challenging. It's a stretch. Maybe you might even say it feels nearly impossible. And he said, I'm going to set an objective where I'm going to increase the satisfaction and the fulfillment of my marriage. I said, fabulous. So like I do with the students, he sent me his objective, and the language has to be very precise when you're asking your unconscious to help you with something. So that's one of the things I do is I review word for word. Is it clear? Will your unconscious understand? Is it aligned for you to set it at this time? What's the desirability? It's rigorous. It's rigorous because you're asking for support, for help. And we want to make sure that you're asking for what you truly want, not telling yourself a lie that it's achievable or it's a good idea. It's something really, 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 really at your core you want. So I remember I approved it, sent it back to him. And at the end of the training, the end of that particular module, Creating a Success Mindset, where you learn how to super achieve your objective, we call a process the debugging. So we're assessing our successfulness. And he was doing it. And I said, what was your successfulness? He said, it was a 10 out of 10. I achieved it. I said, wow, tell me the story. He said, well, I asked my wife before I set the objective, after I set the objective, and when I had sensed that I completed it. It was a 10 in successfulness. I said, how would you rate our marriage on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being really fulfilling and meaningful? And she said, I would have rated it a few months ago about an 8. I kid you not, she said this. And he said, well, how would you rate it now? She said, it's a 10. It's a 10. And this is when I just love it about people who are scientists, He proved it to himself. He proved it to himself that these processes work. So telling ourselves the truth and being in integrity means for him, he wanted the relationship to go up to a 10. And he also wanted to prove these processes. Not that I'm suggesting we need to prove things work, but sometimes we like evidence. So let's talk about this. So I'm saying telling ourselves the truth. That's the first stage. The first stage of being able to achieve something that's meaningful, significant, and deep, like what he wanted. Can you imagine a relationship at a 10 in fulfillment? I mean, let alone an 8 would be great, right? Well, that's what we do when we're aligned with what it is that's important, what's meaningful, and we clear the resistance to get out of the way. Those attitudes, those behaviors, those beliefs that it's not possible. I mean, that's a really big obstacle. Most people who are in wanting to make their life better and improve things is doubt. They doubt either the processes, they doubt themselves. Doubt is one of the biggest blockers to overcome to be able to be successful at manifesting. That'll be another show we'll talk about. But let's get back to integrity. Where are you telling yourself a story? Where are you doing a little bypass that says, my marriage is good enough, my health is good enough, everybody ages, everybody puts on weight. And is that okay? If it's okay, then I am not going to say another word to you. But if it's not okay, then I suggest you make a change. Take charge and say, I'm done, like what I did with my health. I said, I'm done. I am no longer buying clothes, 2 sizes bigger than where I was. And I did everything that I could. I mean, I did a liver gallbladder cleanse. I did a serious cleanse where you're just drinking water with lemon juice and maple syrup. It's called the Stanley Burroughs Master Cleanse. I took it seriously, and I changed my diet completely. I even cut out milk in my morning tea. That was the hardest one. That one didn't last too long because it was out of integrity. I love my British tea in the morning with a bit of milk, which I'm about to have one in just a moment. So telling yourself the truth. So what is it that you want? How important is it to you? And how difficult does it seem to make that change, to manifest it? So you'll notice as we go through these podcasts, we do a lot of rating. Desirability, rate it 1 to 10. Difficulty, rate it 1 to 10. If your difficulty rating is a 10, my friends, it means there is a gap. It means there is a big bunch of resistance that's standing in the way of you manifesting it. But that's okay. There's great tools to learn how to clear that resistance. And that's one of the things we do in our classes. So for now, as we start to wrap up, I'd love to know what your insights were from this podcast. If you go to our Facebook page, Higher True Self, what you think it's facebook.com/Higher True Self. Make a comment. Tell me you've been listening to podcast episode, and tell me your insights. Because here's a thing, when you share something that's important to you, a goal shared is a goal magnified. And I'll tell you, that one didn't come from me. That comes from Tosh Corbin, wonderful Aussie business coach. She's great. A goal shared is a goal magnified. All right. Love to hear it. Okay. So if you've enjoyed the episode and you would like to get notifications of future episodes, go to highertrueself.com @strategist.com/podcast and subscribe. And as we wrap up, if you're done with pushing and forcing yourself to get things done without results, come find your free gift to manifest without force or frustration at highertrueself.com. It's completely free. Remember, self-confirmation frees you to be yourself. Thanks for listening.